Hello and welcome to the Cutie Art Crusaders, episode 109 for August 12th, 2014. It's our special BronyCon episode, and my name is Rainbow Plasma. I'm the organizer and host of this podcast, and today I'm joined by...
Burn1, the special guest coordinator, and this week the editor.
I'm Photograph317, and I am the media manager for the podcast.
And today's audio is going to be a bit strange, and I'm going to tell you why, because... I and Mr. Flutter Guy am sitting next to each other. He's visiting me up in Canada after BronyCon. So we actually have a handheld microphone that we're passing back and forth here. So if there's a bit of this noise, then that's the passing back and forth. Sorry for that, but it happens. Yeah.
We are missing an Atmos Spark today, unfortunately. Because we wanted to do a BronyCon episode, and unfortunately he couldn't join us this year because he's in Australia and we're in the US. We're kind of going to mainly focus on what we did and who we saw, and I don't know, it felt kind of awkward.
Well, and also, like, I totally understand. As someone, I know both of you guys often go to cons together. You got into, like, the four main ones you guys have gone to together. So, but I haven't. So I totally understand where he's coming from. It's not necessarily that it's, like, you know, it's just more of, like, honestly, it's boring, kind of, because we're not really there, and we've met some of the great artists before, so it's like, oh yeah, we met so we gave him the option. We asked him and we said, hey, do you want to sit this one out? And he said, yeah, I will. So it's just the three of us today, but we're gonna go over everything that we did in the con, all of the crazy stuff, all the people that we met, all the amazing art that we saw. So I think if there's nothing else that we want to start with, I think we should start, Burned, with who you met on your plane.
Oh yeah. I had a connection, so I was flying into Houston for a connecting flight, and I wasn't going to make it at first because my initial flight got delayed. So I was going to have to run to my gate because there was like a 15-minute window in which I could make it. And so I was running to my gate through the Houston airport, which is huge, by the way, like every other major airport. And I passed by one of the, what do you call those little flight or window screen things? And it said like, oh, my flight was delayed by 15 minutes. So I was like, oh, okay, cool. So I had time. And then 15 minutes goes by and like, oh yeah, we're delayed by half an hour. It's like, great. And then a few minutes later, we're delayed by an hour and a half. It's like, oh, fantastic. So I'm sitting there at my gate, like, tweeting and stuff just to, like, pass time. And I see that Dark Flame, who we've talked about in previous episodes, we met at Everfree Northwest, had tweeted, like, oh, great, my flight got delayed by an hour and a half. I was like, oh, hey, me too, is like... And then out of, like, joking, I'm like, you're not in Houston, are you? Ha, 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 like, XD. And he... I end up going through his tweets, and he's like, oh, just touched down in Houston. I'm like, so I'm like, no way. So I tweet at him, and he's at the gate that we had to get moved to because they had to push us on a completely different plane. So I went over to that gate and then hung out with him. And then when I was hanging out with him, Dark Flame was like, oh, yeah, no, definitely, like, funny coincidence, a small world when you get thousands of bronies traveling to the same place at once. You definitely meant to, like, people are going to cross. And, like, there's tons of other bronies on our plane, too. And, who was lying on the ground, but none other than Mike the Mike. And Mike the Mike was lying on the floor of the terminal because he doesn't do morning flights well, and it was like 4 a.m. at this point. Our time on West Coast was like 6 time, mid-eastern, whatever. And Mike was just not a happy camper. He doesn't not like traveling in the morning, but it was still cool to get to chat with Dark Flame with the hour and a half wait, and then with Mike the Mike. So yeah, and so like that was pretty cool, and I remember you were like, oh, like Burn sees all the cool people, but then I hear you had a fun time too.
Yeah, so I was sitting. I also had a connection. I went from Ottawa to Chicago and then Chicago to Baltimore, and I had just landed in Chicago, and you get free Wi-Fi in the airport. So I was like, cool, let's catch up with what everyone's doing. And I just got the message from Burns saying like, oh, guess who I met on my plane? I met Dark Flame and Mike the Mike. And I was like, oh, of course Burned would get to meet all like the cool people. Like, oh man, they just met Dark Flame in like Everfree Northwest. Like, what are the chances? That's so awesome. So I get off my plane and I walk to my terminal, and I look over, And who should be on my plane waiting for my plane but well, let's list off. Do you have the guests of honor booklet? Because that's basically what my plane was. I had Sibsy, Mando Pony, Andrea Libman, Peter New,
Tabitha.
Terry Klassen, like Tabitha St. Germain, Kazumi Evans. I had like everyone who is going down there as a special guest happened to come from Vancouver and stop off at Chicago at the exact same time and take the exact same flight. Now, because I had talked to Peter New and Sibsy last year at Everfree Northwest, they both recognized me and we got to hang out and chat for 20 or so minutes. And then we got on the plane and I was thinking, oh, well, it's really cool to see them. I'm sure I'll see them around there sometime, but we probably aren't sitting anywhere close to each other. And, I'm not going to like walk up and talk to them if we're in different seats. Turns out I actually sat right next to Andrea Libman. I was sitting in the same aisle. It was 3 seats. It was me, I guess her boyfriend, Jeff, and then myself. We're just sitting in that. And then across from us was Tabitha. So in my aisle in my row was half of the main 6. And right behind me was Peter New, and a couple rows back was Sibsy. So it was a pretty awesome flight, to say the least. And it was a great way to start the trip. I was like, oh, this is going to be good.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy. Because we heard from Burned about Dark Flame and Mike the Mike, and I was driving down because I'm from New England, so it was like New England to Baltimore is kind of a short drive. It's like 6 hours or whatever. And I also picked up Mahower, aka Man Shower, on the way down because he's in Pennsylvania. So I stopped and picked him up, and we were getting these texts in. And then Rainbow Plasma basically texted it in that he had like all these people on the flight, and we're just like in the car, like what? Like we can't, fathom that.
I believe I texted "I win," something along those lines. But yeah, so that was a really cool way to start the trip. We'll talk more about Mahower later. He's got some cool stuff, and we hung out with him mostly to the weekend. But I don't want to get too caught up on how we got to BronyCon, because I mean, what we did in BronyCon was like 10 times more awesome than taking a flight with those people. So, man, I don't really know where to start. I guess because we're on the topic of pony celebrities who are horse famous, we should probably talk about our press conferences, right, Bernd?
Yeah, press conferences.
We're all official and stuff with the media this year.
Yeah, we are. This was the first year that we'd got invited to do press conferences at BronyCon. I don't know if they had them last year. I think this was the first year they did them. I don't remember.
No, they did have them last year, but we weren't informed of them. We were more in the loop this year, which is nice.
Yeah. So yeah, that was really cool. And if you don't know what a press conference is, if you're listening, it's kind of like a sports conference, that they hold before games, where like they have one person like on a microphone and then like a bunch of press there that get to openly ask them questions. But this was way more small scale than that. So it was just like us and then a couple other people in a room, like privately with Sibsy was our very first press conference. And it was like a very personal interview where we got to like ask them questions, and then a few of the other press guys asked them questions. And it was really nice. It was very like informal, and I don't know, like kind of humbling too, to be able to interact with them on that level at this small little press conference that they've flown out to and then given the time to.
Yeah, it was kind of nice. I really enjoyed. Let's see, who did we interview? It was Sibsy.
Andrew Libman was next,
and then Claire Corlett and her dad Ian, and then we had Tabitha St. Germain and Peter New. And for Sibsy and Peter New, it was a really small environment. Like there weren't that many press people there, and we had previously interacted with them before, so we kind of just like talked back and forth, and it was really comfortable and like just kind of chilled as friends and press and stuff like that.
Yeah, like if you imagine like just sitting down with, the cast of MLP and just being like, how's your weekend going? Like, hey, can I ask you a question about voice acting? It was very much like that. It was so relaxed. Oh, we also interviewed the artists, the comic artists.
Comic artists, one of the colorists and one of the writers.
Yeah, so there we have a lot of those. Funnily enough, before we go into more detail about those, because those were all really awesome, we recorded those and we're putting them up on our YouTube, which is youtube.com/Cutie Art Crusaders. So if you want to go check them out, they're either going to be up soon or they're going to be up over the next couple of weeks or so. They're all really fun. They're all super relaxed. It was amazing getting to be there in person, but I think this is a side of voice actors and voice actresses that you don't often get to see, and that's, the people side of them when they get to sit down and relax. I mean, like, for example, Claire Corlett and her dad, Ian Corlett. Claire Corlett is the voice of Sweetie Belle, and Ian Corlett is the voice of Silver Shill, or the person who gave Applejack her key in season 4. They're kind of like a voice acting duo. They've got that family dynamic, and they had the father-daughter thing going on, and it was amazing. They really played off each other really well. It was hilarious. I would super recommend it. And there was other conversations. Like, for example, on the third day, the only interview that we had was Peter New on the third day, and he was just so tired. We were all exhausted. It was like 2:00 in the afternoon on the last day of BronyCon. Everyone was exhausted. He just plopped down. He took 5 minutes to gather himself, and then we just had like the most relaxing conversation. So I definitely recommend checking it out, because we are going to be uploading these. So we're not just going to talk about them. You guys can live them yourself.
Sounds all official and and stuff.
That's my thing.
No, it was really cool, and like what Rainbow Plasma was saying about the Claire and Ian Corlett press conference, it was really interesting just to see like the whole dynamic between the two of them, and it was really fun. They got like the audience involved, which was the press guys So I think that was probably my favorite press conference to go to, just because of the whole atmosphere. But again, like, they were all amazing, and all of the VIPs that we got to interact with are amazing people, and those were fantastic press conferences.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Bern, did you want to talk a little bit about the comic book artist panel? Because I think that's probably the closest to artists that we've interviewed at something like this, like, from the professional that work actually with Hasbro on the show.
Yeah. Howard and I went to the comic book artist and colorist and one writer comic panel or press conference. There we go. And it was a lot of fun. It was great because it kind of started off very casual with some like not art related questions about cats. And so then
I heard you guys talked a lot about cats.
Yeah, Andy Price ranted, but just kept ranting about cats. And like that was a lot of fun because it's very like, it's the personal, not like show related or press related. It's kind of just like random banter about cats. So you get to hear a little bit of personality behind like the artists and stuff. So that was fun. And then it got a little bit more serious with a lot of really good art questions, which is nice because if you're listening to this podcast, you're maybe a little like enjoy hearing a lot about art. So we got to hear about like the relation between colorist and like comic illustrator and stuff. And there were some really awesome points and things that Andy Price mentioned. Like, I think my favorite part was when they talked about like their mistakes with panels and like learning to draw ponies and like mistakes on covers and stuff of comics. And so they kind of revealed some things and some disasters that they've had throughout like making the miniseries franchise, which was really, really cool and really interesting. I really recommend, if you're a fan of the comics, going and checking that out. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I heard you mentioned that Tony Fleece had some interesting stories from when he started out, I guess.
Yeah, like when he started out, he knew nothing about My Little Pony. He's just kind of drawing this thing, this gig that he got. And like the first 2 series are admittedly like, like he's learning how to draw ponies, And like he admitted that, and people were used to get on his case about how he would draw the back legs of ponies, like that hawk, like that kind of that third elbow they have on their back leg. And he was like, eventually he had told the story where he's like, all right, I get it. And he like, someone sent him a tutorial on how to draw it, and he like printed it out and was like, bam, like stuck it in front of his studio, like above his illustration table, like how to properly draw pony legs. And
that's funny that like someone from the fandom ended up being like, all right, here, let me tell you how to do your job.
Yeah. And so like that was pretty funny, and that was good. So yeah, a lot of good material there.
Yeah, so those will all be up on our YouTube channel if you want to go check them out. I would highly recommend them. I had a lot of fun doing them. Speaking of stuff that's going to be on our YouTube channel, we also went around and did some really awesome individual artist interviews in the vendor hall, the BronyCon famous vendor hall.
Yeah, so I guess the best way to introduce this is just kind of going through how we kind of went about doing that. We got in contact with Josh, or Shutter Speed, I think he's the media relations or head of public relations for BronyCon. And so we talked with him. We also talked with Brandon, who was the lead of the vendor hall, and we were able to kind of secure some special permission to be in the vendor hall before it opened for like the hour that people were setting up beforehand. So we could kind of get in there and do some interviews with artists before the mad rush of people who wanted to buy things.
Yeah, because it's absolutely terrible trying to like do like interviews and stuff with artists when there's tons and tons of fans in there and customers, and it's not something that you want to do or be a position that you want to place yourself in, where it's like, here, can I distract you and keep customers from interacting with your vending table for like 15 minutes while we do an extremely awkward interview in a crowded vendor hall that's very noisy. It doesn't work out, and it's a bad scenario, and it's kind of unprofessional.
Yeah, and plus we wanted to keep the interviews casual, so like we mostly used an on-camera microphone instead of using handheld microphones, and with the amount of noise that would be in the vendor hall while people were actually in there, the audio would just be very sloppy. So we wanted to kind of get that more close interaction and more natural interaction with the artists. So thanks to Brandon and to Josh that we were able to get into the vendor hall. And on the first day, we kind of went around and we talked to artists individually and kind of found out if they'd be interested in doing something like that, and most of them said yes. So then on the second and the third day of BronyCon, before the vendor hall opened, we actually got in there and were able to do some interviews, which was awesome.
Yeah, both Josh and Ben are really pleasant to work with. Very professional guys.
Yeah, and actually we had a gopher named Caleb.
Yeah, shout out to Caleb the gopher.
Yeah, who was amazing. He actually kind of tagged along. Bern, do you want to explain what a gopher is in this kind of sense?
If you're listening and you don't know what a gopher at a convention is basically just like a runaround helper. There's basically a gopher team, and they all have radios. And if anyone needs help with something or an extra helping hand anywhere in the convention, someone with a radio can like basically call up to them and be like, "Hey, we need you here to help with this. Help carry something. Help escort a VIP. Blah blah blah." So. Yeah.
I think honestly the name is kind of a pun on the phrase "go for something." So I need you to go for something, and so you become the go for, and then they were like, "That sounds better. It's gopher."
Sure, we'll roll with that.
I'm gonna Google it. Here, you guys do it.
I disagree. I think gopher is just like you pop up when you're needed, like gophers. Like gophers just pop out of the ground. But that's how I think about it. It doesn't matter. It's the name gopher. They're a helping hand. So when we needed to get into the vendor hall, like before and after hours, we needed someone to basically escort us and make sure we don't do anything wrong. Just kind of keep an eye on us. Because it's just like, it's a con policy, which is really good to have policies like that. So Caleb was the gopher assigned to us, and he was really helpful throughout the convention. He ended up helping us on like day 3, and he was like kind of like a camera escort, what do you want to call it? He helped keep people like out of the shot and walking through the frame, and like let people know that we're recording. And like we didn't even ask him to do that. He just did it because he was awesome like that and helpful. So big shout out to Caleb.
We met so many awesome people, and that's really, honestly, I believe that's the theme of this episode. We're talking about BronyCon, but it all comes down to the awesome people that we met there. Whether or not it was the people we were doing press conferences with, the people who were helping us out, the artists that we met, or just the personal friends that we got to hang out with, everyone was just so amazingly awesome.
Yeah, that's the stuff I want to talk about, is all the people I got to meet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we'll start with our first artist interview, which will hopefully be up on our YouTube channel by the time this episode airs. But that was with Saoshin, who is an artist that we actually interviewed 2 weeks ago on CAC, and he's an absolutely amazing fan artist. And Rainbow Plasma is beckoning for the mic, so here.
It's okay. Whenever you're done, are you still going?
You go.
Okay, cool. Yeah, well, I wanted to mention that because, I want to kind of centralize what we're talking about here. So I was going to ask a question, which was, if there was an artist that stood out to you over the weekend, and obviously we're going to go over a lot of them. We can't go over all of them. So I was going to narrow it down to like, if there was one artist that stood out to you over the weekend, like who was it? And I was going to mention Saoshin as mine. We just met Saoshin 2 weeks ago when we did our interview with him, and he was nothing but amazing during that interview, and it just continued all the way through the weekend. Whenever he saw us, he always called us over and was like saying hi. Super friendly guy. He was just like, it was so awesome being on your podcast. He like offered to give us prints for free. I refused. I tossed money at him.
Yeah.
But he was constantly saying like, hey, like people are coming up and talking about your podcast, like that's with me, and so to me he really stood out to me just because he was so nice. And it's so amazing that we can meet a person like that, and within 2 weeks, like I really feel like close to him, and that I could like call him up and chat with him, and he was just really nothing but amazing this entire weekend. So shout out to you, Saoshin.
Yeah, like I thought he was nice on Skype, and he's like even nicer in person. I was like, how's that possible? He was so nice.
It's interesting because this was his first pony convention, and we kind of talked to him about that during the con and also in our interview that we had done, and we kind of touched base with him a couple of points during the convention, and he was saying that this con compared to other cons, like everyone is so friendly here, and everyone is very inquisitive about the artwork and about how he does his art and stuff like that, and very like complimentary. So I think that kind of reflects on the general nature of people at BronyCon, and it really was kind of heartwarming that he said that a lot of people kind of appreciate what he does and his artwork and stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so that's what stood out to me. Now I know, Bern, something that really stood out to you was getting to meet White Dove. White Dove, of course, being one of the, if not the best plushie maker in the entire fandom. If you haven't heard of her, whitedove-creations.deviantart.com. Amazing. How was it meeting her?
It was kind of like a dream, actually. I still kind of can't believe it happened. Because she's been this huge icon for me ever since I became a brony. It was like, I became a brony, fell in love with ponies, and I've always loved stuffed animals. My mom's raised me on them. So when I saw that there were plushies of ponies, like, back in 2012, that like blew my mind. And then that's like right when White Dove started like making, these little stuffed horses. And like, it's always been something like a goal of mine in life to like own a White Dove plushie and just get to meet her, like interact with her. And I got to meet her like in the flesh at BronyCon, and out of all the moments in BronyCon, like that is easily like my highlight, is getting to meet like one of my online like artist heroes, you know what I mean? So
yeah, totally.
We got to do an interview with her, which was even more awesome. And like in the middle of the interview, I was like, it's a real pleasure to actually like get to meet you in person. She's like, and like talk to you and see you in the flesh. She's like, oh well, now you can hug me in the flesh. And she like hugged me. I was like, eh! Like, and
I was there.
That was awesome.
Can confirm, Burn Squeed.
Yeah, inside. I didn't do it in the interview. I stayed professional. I was wearing a suit.
I'm pretty sure after the interview, though.
Yeah. So yeah, speaking of after the interview, so I mean, I've always wanted to own a White Dove plushie, that's like always been this thing. Like I have plushies, but like none of them compare to a White Dove plushie. And she had plushies for sale there. So she was at BronyCon, she was vending. She came with 40 plushies, and all of them sold except for 6 when we were there on day 2. It was like an Applejack, 2 Pinkie Pies, and like a Cadence and a Lyra. And then among them was her personal plushie of her OC. And it turned out that it was the only plushie version of her OC she'd ever made, and it was one of her earlier patterns. And it was for sale at BronyCon. And I asked if it was for sale, and she mentioned it was. And I couldn't leave without it. So I left with her, the plushie version of herself, which I'm really surprised no one had bought before me. And I'm like honored to own it. And I'm like super, super happy that no one bought it. And now I'm hugging it.
Yeah, it's so awesome. I mean, like because I'd never seen her at the cons before, but I'd never like physically touched a White Dove plushie before. And then after you bought that, we were just carrying it around for the rest of the day, and I was just like holding on to it like, oh my God. And let me tell you, those plushies look like they're amazing quality online. They feel even better. Like they hold up to what
Yeah.
they are online, and it is just it is incredible. So it's so cool because like that's what you mentioned. That's the only White Dove OC that she ever made, and she was just like, yeah, I'm selling it. And it's just like, whoa, that you could get that. You
I'm
know,
super surprised it wasn't gone because like most people there will want like pony plushies, you know, like of the main 6 or like of the characters they love. But like
right.
this thing that I really loved was this creator, like was this artist, like was White Dove herself. So like out of all the plushies that I could buy, like the plushie version of her, I think is the most special, like to me, because it's like the thing that I cherish isn't like the ponies she makes. It's like her being a person like in the community that makes these amazing plushies. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and now you're gonna have to go to every single con with that now because if you see her, you can't be like,
No way,
hey, I'm the
man.
guy who bought it, but I didn't bring it.
I'm not going on a plane with this. I was so like protective of it when we were flying. Like,
Didn't you have to take the plane back with it in your arms?
Yep. It
I-
made
you
for
know,
a
I
very
actually haven't
awkward
heard-
conversation with a girl next to me for one of my 4-hour flights back. There
You know,
is-
I actually haven't heard that story at all because you
Yeah.
never told us.
I can tell you if you want.
Sure.
I'll make it quick, but there was a girl who was from Hawaii who was sitting up like 3 rows in front of me, and then I like walked through the plane, like sat down, and there was no one in my row, and I was in one of the emergency exits. And so when we were taking off, she asked if she can be relocated, and they were like, sure. So then she jumped in the aisle next to me, and it was a 21-year-old girl from Hawaii, and she was a very particular or interesting girl. She was really sweet, really nice, but she had OCD, so she had a tic where she would clap her hands and rub them together, and like that was just kind of her tic, and it was perfectly fine. Like I have no problem with that, but it kind of made for like her kind of I don't know, like social interactions was just like really interesting, and how curious she was about everything, and yeah, so. I don't know if she
So
like
you were
kept-
like, don't clap my pony, bro.
No, it wasn't about that. It was just kind of a little like fact that made our interaction a little bit more interesting, I guess. But yeah, she was super curious about like the convention. She didn't know like that there were like bronies and like like big pony conventions, and so it was really awkward to just be like, well, yeah, I'm holding this huge like stuffed horse. Like I couldn't hide it. I can't hide the fact that I'm a brony. I
Yeah,
have this 16-inch plushie in my arms that I'm like
And you
holding
had
like
to take
a
it
child.
on the plane.
Yeah, I couldn't like shove it in a bag. No way.
Yeah.
One, it's too big and it would get messed up and just nah. But yeah, so like it was awkward because it's like, yeah, I go to conventions and I'm media and like I like to consider myself horse famous, and even though I didn't mention it
Dang
like
right
that,
we
but
are.
it was really fun. It was kind of humbling too. It was one of the first few times that I've described like in depth to someone who knows absolutely nothing about bronies and like what is my horse life, my secret horse life, if you will.
What is my horse life?
Yeah.
Burned 2014.
So that was interesting.
feel
That was
like-
a lot of fun. It was a very humbling experience after just horsing out for 3 days straight. You know what I mean?
I feel like what is my horse life could be like a dramedy, like
Should
yeah.
put that on a shirt.
It's the next Mando Pony single. What is my horse life?
Yes.
What was his most recent single?
Andy,
Like,
please.
was it How Did I Become So Horse Famous?
How did I become so horse famous
that's
or something
right.
like that? I think it's just called horse famous. We actually saw. Okay, this is totally off the book here. We saw him perform that live on the last day.
In the
he
vendor
just
hall.
walked up. Yeah, he
Yeah.
walked up to one of the vendor hall booths that was just blasting it out, and he was just like, "All right, can you put on horse famous?" And he grabs the mic and he just goes so
Yeah,
hard
they had a
with the
karaoke
song.
machine.
It was so awesome. You know what? I want to talk about him for a second because he was awesome to me personally. So I knew Sibsy from last year, right? And she's been wonderful to us every single time we've met her. And I got to hang out with her a little bit at Everfree Northwest, and she was super kind. She signed something for me. It was really awesome. And then, I get onto the plane, or not on the plane, but right before the plane, I'm talking with her, and then I get introduced to Mando Pony. Let me tell you, I think he is the nicest person in the entire world. And every single time I saw him walking around the convention, he was like, "Hey, how's it going? Like, how's your con going?" Like, the dude is amazing, and I cannot describe. Those two people get all of this crap, and they are probably the two nicest people that I know. Like they are amazing.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's a bit of a side tangent. We were talking about something, and what we were talking about was something that stood out, an artist that stood out to us, and we have forgotten Mr. Flutter Guy over here with our tangents. So, what stood out? What was the artist that stood out to you?
Well, I was gonna kind of go off of Burn's story before I kind of did that and delve a little bit more into the plushies because we all kind of ended up buying plushies at this con. I know that Rainbow Plasma and myself and Burn actually all got Fourth Dimension Entertainment plushies that they were selling for $20 each. Rainbow Plasma and myself got a Twilight plushie, and then Burned, you got a Pinkie Pie plushie.
Mm-hmm.
And then Rainbow Plasma and I actually ended up getting plushies from, I believe it's called Art Spark. They make these like adorable little ball plushies. And so Rainbow Plasma got this really cute Rainbow Dash ball plushie. And I actually got an Apple Bat plushie that hangs by her tail from the same people. So this was kind of PlushieCon for me.
Yeah,
So,
I was really surprised to see the Fourth Dimension table there because I've always kind of wanted that Pinkie Pie plushie because I have the Twilight one, which is absolutely adorable. And so it's nice to be able to like get the Pinkie Pie one too because they were super cheap because online they're like what, $20-$30 or something with
I
shipping.
think they're like $25
Yeah,
online plus
and
shipping.
They were selling them at the con for $20 a piece or $15 for each. Like, so it's $30 for them together. It's like, what?
Yeah. Yeah. And I kind of had gone into this con, and we'll touch on this later, knowing that I wasn't really going to buy a lot of prints because I have so many prints from Everfree last year and BronyCon last year that I have no more wall space for them. So it was like I was looking for things that were kind of different from prints, like more originals or plushies or physical items.
Yeah.
And I know that you guys were also kind of looking for that too.
Yeah.
You totally stole my shtick. I handed it to you, and I was like, look at me. I'm being so nice. I'm going to let Flutter Guy talk about his artist thing. And then you just come in here, and you're like, I'm going to steal his shtick. So let's talk about, what's your favorite artist? Oh, no, never mind. Let's not talk about your favorite artist. All right. What was your standout? This time, when I hand you back the microphone, you're going to answer my question. What was your standout artist experience at BronyCon?
Can I say two?
Sure.
Flutter Guy 317 has
31
lost mic
minutes in.
privileges for
Let's
the rest
go.
of tonight.
Well, okay, so one of them is a personal experience, and one I feel like it kind of encompasses all of us.
Save the personal for later.
The first experience that was amazing was with the paper ponies,
Hey.
and they basically make these shadow boxes, which are kind of 3-dimensional artwork. Well, it's like 2.5 dimensional. I don't really know. It's basically like they take paper and they layer it, and they make this like semi 3-dimensional piece of art. And so we had done an interview with them, and we had talked with them about like their artwork and how we'd love to have them on a show because it's a very unique kind of thing that they've been doing, and like it's really interesting to me how they put them together and how much time it takes, et cetera, et cetera. And so we had kind of been talking to them, and we actually met Jada Jinx, who Burn knows, I think, through Twitter or Tumblr or something
Through
like that.
Twitter, DeviantArt, and just online in general. Like, she stopped by my live stream. She's just a Deviant artist, basically. She's an artist online who I've interacted with who's a fan of our show. So
Yeah. And she was actually one of, I think, 6 people in this collaboration that the Paper Ponies had done for the charity auction, which is basically each artist kind of designed their own shadow box for one of the main 6.
you should really go look it up if you haven't seen it. It was absolutely beautiful. It was Leakfish, John Azeko, Pixel Kitties, Jada Jinx, and the last artist was, help me out.
I don't remember.
Anywho.
Anyhow, so the artists kind of designed the shadow box, and then the Paper Ponies put them together, and it went for $3,250 in the auction, which is fantastic. And we were actually bidding on it, but that was a little out of our price range. So, but I'd like to think that we kind of helped bump up the auction a bit. So,
Yeah.
oh, okay. The other artist was Kat Whitney. I
Thank
knew
you.
it.
Okay.
Yeah.
She had Applejack. I
And Sophie Cabra. Okay, so who was it? It was Pixel Kitty, Sophie Cabra, Kat Whitney, Jada Jinx, Leakfish, and John Azeko.
So Sophie Cabra didn't have a
Yeah, she did.
thing. Which
Yeah, she
one?
did. I'm not sure.
You're a liar.
No, we're on her DeviantArt page right now. The Applejack piece.
Shenanigans? Oh, okay.
The Applejack piece was Sophie Cabra.
Okay.
Yeah, so anyhow, so that was really awesome, and we talked with them about that, and actually on the last day, like just as people were closing up shop, they had one Applejack piece left at their table, and so I ended up buying that piece, and we talked with them some more, got some awesome pictures with them, and it was just like an overall awesome experience. I really enjoyed talking with them, and I do hope that we can kind of have them on our show at some point to talk about what they do, because it's really good stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
And then the other point that I wanted to bring up was us meeting Flea Bites. And I know, Bern, this was kind of a big thing for you too.
Yeah, it's what I would have brought up if it was like asked about an artist that was special.
Yeah. Because Flea Bites, I
You're
think
taking my points too, man.
Sorry. Do you want to go into it a bit?
Yeah, sure, I'd love to. Flea Bites, so I mentioned it's going to be my point earlier because Flea Bites has been like an artist who I've always really admired online as well. We featured on the show a couple times, so remember her Wonderbolts watercolor from our Wonderbolts episode, the Pinkie Pie one from the party episode, and then I believe we feature her Rarity? I believe we did in the Rarity episode.
I think we did, yeah.
With like the Rarity, and she's like sewing and her spine is all warped and stuff, and it's all crazy and organic. Absolutely adore her work and like love it, and I know it from online. But she had a table there and she was vending, and like that's what's really special about like all these cons is like I can see art that I really admire and love, and then I go to these cons and then I see the artists who make it. But what was even more special, she had the originals of those for sale, and I saw that and I was like, no way, like I cannot leave without these, you know what I mean? Like at least some of these originals. And I was really shocked in that she was selling them like criminally low, like super, super low price for like originals of these artworks that I really loved. So instead of just buying, like picking one, I bought like all of them. I bought 3 of her pencil originals, and then I bought the watercolor original for the Wonderbolts one. And then I ended up telling Joel about the watercolor Pinkie Pie, and then Mahauer found out about it, and he's like, "No, I'm going to buy that," and bought that one, and then also bought a pencil sketch himself.
Yeah, we end up like clearing out all of her originals just because we kept going back to her table and be like, "Oh, we could get more. We could get more."
Yeah, I was like, "There's no way I'm not letting her leave there without all of my money. Just like take it." Yeah. So.
And I know, like, we both appreciate her style and how, like, it's kind of on the verge of surrealism. And we got to talk to her, and we actually did an interview with her, which should be up on our YouTube channel. And she kind of explained how she kind of got into the whole surrealism thing, and that she just does really quick lines because her pencil, like, tends to shake or whatever. Which was really cool. It was really interesting getting to talk to her, and a very humbling kind of experience, because she was very, very grateful for us to again be able to like appreciate her artwork. And
she was extremely kind and gracious. And doing like an interview with someone like that is always incredibly humbling for both you and them. And it's a really like special experience, I guess, to like say to someone like, "Oh my gosh, I love you," and they're like, "Oh my gosh, like thank you, like people love me." You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I ended up buying an original watercolor of Octavia from her, which
is really
I
pretty.
It was really cool because you can kind of see, I don't know if it's the whole palette or part of her palette, like on the edge where she kind of dabbed colors, which is really cool.
Yeah, the little like watercolor palette thing on the bottom there. Yeah.
So those are some artists that stood out to us. Of course, there are tons of amazing artists that stood out to us, and we have even more interviews than we've mentioned on our YouTube channel that should be going up over the next couple of weeks or so.
Look at all these sketches I have.
Yeah, Bern got a bunch of commissions and stuff. I wanted to talk a little bit. You were talking about plushies. I wanted to talk about basically the exact same thing you said, except it's my thing. Because I walked into the con and I said last year I bought a bunch of prints and they ended up in a kind of like a tube when I moved, and they didn't go up on my walls, and even if they did go up on my walls, I don't really have that much space, so I didn't want to overload myself with prints because I had like a much larger budget this year. So what I did was I went around and I wanted to find a lot of different unique things that I would bring back. So if we take a look here, you can see a bunch of you can see like, this is kind of like my stuff that wasn't the prints, because I did buy some posters. Okay, I caved. But I did have a lot of stuff here that wasn't anything to do with prints and stuff. So, for example, in this picture, we see in the background there, the Twilight plushie is drinking out of my new glass. And that glass, very hard to see, but it's got Spitfire's cutie mark etched into it. And I don't remember who made that, so I'm an awful person, and I didn't get their business card.
There's like 3 tables that make glasses.
Yeah, there was like 3 or 4, so I couldn't even pinpoint. So I apologize to whoever made that. But I got the last Spitfire cutie mark glass, which just looks amazing. I'm going to use it from now on. So I got that. That was really cool. I got that ball plushie that Flutter Guy mentioned before. I got a shadow box, again, made by someone that I didn't get the business card for because I'm awful. But there was another person. It wasn't the Paper Ponies. There was someone else selling shadow boxes, and so I got a shadow box from them there. That Dash one. I got a mouse pad. You can see below Twilight. There's a mouse pad of Celestia and Luna that looks really, really cool. My old mouse pad was getting worn out, so I got that.
I know who made that mouse pad. It was a Draw Ponies.
Right, that one. Yeah, awesome. I got a Cadence T-shirt down there, and there's a Fluttershy folder, which I think we're gonna send to Atmospark. But like, there's a ton of like different unique things. It was really important to me to go out and do that because there was actually so many awesome different types of vendors there, not just posters, but just everything under the sun, T-shirts and glasses and plushies. So many plushies, holy cow! So it was really cool for me to be able to go out and actually fulfill that kind of want to go and get different items.
Yeah, I've definitely been there, and it feels really nice to have like other pony things too. That you can actually get use out of. Like I have these cup holder, or not cup holders, coasters that I got by Midi Mandy that are like have original style ponies she's etched into the bottom, which are really awesome. They're glass, if you can tell. And then I also got a glass of Twilight's Cutie Mark to go with my Rainbow Dash and like the Cutie Mark Crusader Cutie Mark. I'm like collecting them, you know what I mean? Like gotta get all the glasses. But I try to like hold back because when you go to those conventions, you don't want to fly home with a bunch of glass, you know what I mean?
Yeah, because then you have to package it and everything, and it's kind of tricky.
Yeah.
So anyhow, kind of transitioning to my swag bag.
Swag.
We kind of had a bit of an issue with hotel room and stuff like that, but we actually worked a lot with Dawnfire or Celebi Yoshi because she was able to secure us hotel rooms, and she's an awesome artist that was at BronyCon, and she shared a table with Likesur, Like-A-Surr, or Margot, who was also very amazing and nice, and she was making like freshly minted buttons. And so when we were at the con, because we were talking with Dawn and Margot a lot, she actually decided to make buttons of our OCs. So each of us got a button of our OC.
I wore mine.
Yeah, including Joel at Atmospark, and I'll be shipping that off to him. So.
Yeah, and there's also a little hat there, which is funny because at the last day I was hanging around their booth and Margot was saying, "Oh man, I've almost sold out of all," because she doesn't just make buttons, but she also makes like hats and she's starting to do plushie stuff. So she had this hat and she was like, "Oh man, all I need to do is sell this, and that's all I like, and then I'll be done with all of these and I'll have sold out." And I was like, I know someone who might like that hat. So I was like, here, I'll buy that to support a friend, and I got you a little Applejack hat for you to wear. And it came, and she put the buttons in with those as well. I know like we talked to Dawn after we interviewed Dawn. I've been talking with her a lot, and I'm pretty close friends with her now. So it was awesome getting to see her, and I kind of want to use that to kind of transition into some of the more personal encounters that we had at BronyCon, because we can talk about the artists a lot, but we also just met generally awesome people. Starting with Dawn and Margot, two people who hung out with us, and they were both really fantastic. It was great to see them. But we also had like Mahower was there as well. We would love to have him on the show, but maybe sometime he can try not losing his audio. No, we didn't re-record this. No. But we had Mahower there, who was amazing. I got to meet him for the first time. You guys met him last year, but dude's the funniest guy I know. He's hilarious, and it was so amazing to hang out with him. What an absolutely fantastic guy. He hung out with us and helped us this entire weekend.
I easily call Mahower like one of my best friends now. Like on the internet. I think we all do. Like he's always nothing but nice. Like he enjoys like going out of his way to hang out with me, and like we watch things together, and like getting to like see him in the flesh. It was like we were just like meeting you guys for the first time. It was just like we've been friends forever,
Yeah.
Best friends
Plus
forever.
we got him to buy a pony T-shirt too.
Yeah, we did.
Awesome.
Small
Which
steps.
is great because he's totally a closet brony, and he's like,
He
"No, I'm
is.
not," and it's like, "Yeah, you are." We actually have a funny story that I'm going to do really quickly here. If you go over to our DeviantArt, cutieartcrusaders.deviantart.com, we have a little album that we put up in our gallery of all of our BronyCon pictures, and you can go check that out. But there's a series of about 9 photos that might look a bit weird, and it's all of us in our hotel room. Kind of messing around with plushies. So at some point, I had gained possession of Dawnfire's plushie, probably through some sort of kidnapping incident, and I decided that before I was going to return it, we should take some silly photos and then show those photos to her later. So we took some silly photos, and then Mahower was really tired, and I was like, Mahower, take a photo with the plushie. He's like, no, I don't want to take a photo with a plushie. Ugh, I don't want evidence of me being around ponies. Yeah. And so what we did was we took every single plushie in the room, and that ended up being like 9 or 10 at that point, and we piled them on top of him, and then you two jumped on the bed and held him down while we tried to take pictures. He struggled a lot, so he didn't get any good pictures, but there's some great struggle shots in that gallery.
Some forcing like super peer pressure of ponies going on. I didn't know like brony bullying was a thing, but you saw it here at Cutie Art Crusaders.
Absolutely. No, I'm all for it. It's definitely it's episode. So yeah, it was fantastic. It was fantastic to see Mahower, and we met so many awesome people. We met a lot of fans, like I guess this is also an artist too. Ardale was there because he was vending. But we also
always
met,
see him. He's stalking me.
And Jada Jinx and Ardale gave us a couple of prints. He was selling this Price of Immortality piece just at BronyCon, so he gave us a couple of those pieces, and we met Ramislack too. Ramislack was another fan there, and he gave us a couple of those things on Flutter Guy's picture there, Burned. The ones in the middle, you've got the Rainbow Dash one, which is upside down, and the Applejack one in the middle. Those two were just pieces by Ramislack, and he just kind of handed them to us, and I think you got one as well, Burned.
I got an Applejack.
Yeah, so like we met so many awesome people. Sargos was another one, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We actually had a meetup, and we had run into Ramislack earlier, who was actually from Sweden, by the way, and this was his first time outside of Europe, which was fantastic and amazing, and I hope he had a great time. But we had a meetup on the Saturday of BronyCon, and we got to meet some really cool people. Zargos was there, Minky Squeak was there, Ramislack was there, Robert... What's his...
Why do we keep forgetting his username?
Burned, you know this, right?
Space Howitzer was
there. And that was really cool because, like, we had no idea who he was, and he just came up and introduced himself as Robert, and like was sitting down there.
My name's Robert. I heard you're doing a meetup. She's like, how do you know about us? Where are you from? Are you a spy?
Yeah, and it was just really cool because, like, we hadn't really interacted... Like, I've interacted with him in the chat, obviously, during our episodes, but, like... on a more personal level, we haven't really interacted with him, but it was really cool just meeting up with people like that.
Chill guy. Yeah, well, while we're talking about special people, I didn't get to talk about the swag that I got. Man.
Yeah, go ahead.
Talk about my swag. What's funny is all of my swag is like personal stuff too. And it's from like people who I interacted with, because was the same as you, that I have too many bloody prints. I have like a giant I'll never use these print pile. But everything that I left BronyCon with was like hand-drawn by someone. I always try to get sketch commissions, as like an interaction with the artist. Whenever someone's doing a sketch commission, I really like the art. I tried to get it. So I've got like a little sketch by Trish Fostner. If you remember, we interviewed her, Nanook123. She is always lovely. You brought her cookies.
I got her cookies.
Yeah, very nice.
That line at Subway was awful.
Thank you for going through that, so I didn't have to. And then... at a Trill's table, I got a sketch where the Trill wasn't there, but there's some artist friends. I got Stranger Danger sketch and Valexane, both really cute. And then I got an artist who I really, really like, who I have found out about at cons, actually. I saw her for the first time at BabsCon. Her name's Star Chaser, and I really love her style. I've kind of fallen in love with it. And I bought a Twilight original at BabsCon, and then I got her to sketch my OC here at BronyCon, which is adorable. She like drew my OC like almost like shuffling an imaginary tie that I am not wearing because I'm a horse.
Whoa, Burned. Are you saying that horses can't wear ties?
I never said that, man. I never said that. Anyway, so we have a Twilight sketch here too. There was an artist who had a Twilight hanging up, and I was like, Twilight's really cute, man. He's like, oh yeah, I'm doing sketch commissions. That's my example. I was like, what if I want that Twilight? And he's like, oh, this Twilight? Here, you can have it. And he handed it to me. I was like, no. And I like pushed it back at him. He's like, how about I pay you as much as a sketch commission and you ink it? He's like, oh, okay, I can do that. It's like, sweet. And so I got him to like ink the Twilight. And so that's really cool. And then Flutter Guy and I actually met an artist in the little like drawing room mess around area at BronyCon. I think his name's pronounced Accidental. I don't know.
Yeah, something like that. I'm not really
Something
sure.
like that. But that dude was really cool, and he's actually another like fan of our show. He like heard of us. He had heard of us through Otaku, of like all things, and like apparently like our horse Prestige precedes us. Apparently, I don't know. Like I thought that was really funny, and he was also there with another guy who recognized us, Red Pear, who's apparently a friend of Jowie Bean, which was kind of interesting. Small world.
It's interesting. Red Pear is a vector artist, and so we kind of talked with him a bit because we all used to be vector artists, and he actually, I think, got in contact with Mahower afterwards because Mahower is still a fantastic vector artist. So, yeah, it's kind of cool. Networking. Bern, did you want to talk about the 4 artists that you got a commission from?
Yeah, I can in a second after I talk about these Flea Bites originals. I mentioned them a little bit, Flea Bites, but I want to mention the ones that I did walk away with. I had the original. I got her original of the a Big Mac drawing that she had done, which I really really love for a lot of reasons. I'll rant about it later. And then a Fluttershy original she did, and then an original of like the main 6 like falling out of the sky and like hitting each other with the most fantastic expressions ever, and then the Wonderbolts watercolor, which I think I mentioned. But yeah, anywho, 4 artists. So when Matt and I were kind of goofing off day 1, because I really wanted to play with my camera, we were just kind of walking around and doing stuff. And we had walked by these 4 artists who were sitting around this little like coffee table at up in BronyCon, and like kind of the chill little chairs off to the side. And they had 4 chairs like pulled together, and they were just sketching this like collaborative comic thing. And I remember looking over his shoulder, and he was like drawing on it. I was like, huh, like that's interesting. I wonder what that is. So we turned the camera on and walked up to them, and we were like, hi, like, would you be willing to do an interview with us? And they were just kind of like, all 4 of them just kind of looked at us like, what? Like an interview? Like, sure. So we did this really goofy interview with these 4 random dudes who were drawing a comic. Like they had like laid out a bunch of panels, and then they would hand it to someone. He would draw a panel, and they would hand it to the next guy. He would draw a panel. The next guy would draw a panel, and the next guy would draw a panel. And they just this ridiculous comic like they had going on. But they were all 4 artists, and they were all 4 friends who'd known each other through Skype. And they were meeting there at BronyCon for the first time, like ever, that they were interacting with each other in person, and they had known each other as like Brony artists online, and here they were all together, like sketching ponies, and we just kind of like wandered across them and then threw them into like this random interview. And they were really cool dudes. There was Trotting Dead, Ask Violet, Rain, I think, and then a Holy Pichu, I believe. And this one guy, Fire Bust, I think, like not Burst, but Bust. Fire Bust, yeah. But anywho, 4 really cool dudes. They're really funny. And the interview is great. You really should go check it out. It's very like casual. It's not a super serious interview. And I was joking around a lot at that night. And then the next morning when I put on my dress clothes again in the tie that I had, acting all professional, one of the guys trotting dead was vending, and so he invited the other 4 or 3 artists to like help him out at his vending table, and they were all there doing sketch commissions. And I walked up and I was like, hey, can I get a sketch commission from you? And they were like, what? Like, sure. And I was like, how much would it cost to get a sketch commission of all 4 of you to draw like on one thing, kind of like in that spirit of the comic they were doing? And they were like, what? Like, I don't know, that sounds awesome. How about $15, like $5 more than a sketch commission? I'm like, how about 20 here? Like, here's double. So they all did this awesome piece with like all their OCs like interacting on this big huge like sketch paper, and then 2 other girls that they were vending with as well also did that. So I got 3 or 6 characters on a big sketch thing, like, and it was really fun, and they really enjoyed doing it. But yeah, like that was just some random interaction with 4 dudes who I'd never met, and that was the first time they're meeting, and it was a really, I don't know, really cool experience to get to meet them and interact with them too. And again, like we said this before, like they were just absolutely like awesome, like really nice, really like the whole thing looks like humble. I don't know, man, it's hard to describe.
Yeah. There were a lot of interactions like that. Like you said, we had gone around on Friday night. Well, you and Mahower went around Friday night, and then you, Mahara, and myself went around Saturday night, and we just kind of chilled with some artists and like just talked with them, and maybe did a couple interviews here and there, and it was just generally a fun time. Before we kind of wrap things up, because I know we're kind of running short on time, I wanted to talk about something that I know Mahauer really enjoyed doing at this convention, which was his Never Too Many Pinkie Pies commission sketch thing that he kind of put together as a collaboration between a bunch of artists at the convention. So Burned last year did a giant collaboration on a playmat where he went around and he got a ton of artists to do like little quick sketches of their OCs or of who knows whatever they wanted to do. So this year, Mahauer decided to ask Leakfish to start a base for basically a mirror pool sketch of Pinkie Pie, and to do one Pinkie Pie. And then he took this base sketch and he went around the convention and ended up getting 10 different artists to do their own style of Pinkie Pie in the mirror pool, including who was it? Leakfish, Karzani, Andy Price, so the comic book artist, Sophie Cabra, Flea Bites, Celebi Yoshi, Nanook123, Trish, Jaded Jinx, Bluetooth, and Bob Dude. And so he kind of just went around. That was a big thing for him because he's really likes Pinkie Pie, and he really appreciates like all of the artists that contributed to this. And so I know that I would be remiss for not mentioning this and kind of bringing it up. And he did post a picture of it to his DeviantArt, so you guys should go check it out because it's amazing.
Yeah, it was really fantastic.
Yeah, it was really, all of this, the story that you told, Burned, about those 4 guys coming together and meeting each other for the first time and hanging out, this story of collaboration between so many artists who I know, Mahauer was talking to us about it, and he was saying these artists, when he walked up to them, were just honored to be a part of it, and they were like, oh, thank you for letting me be a part of it. And Mahauer's like, what do you mean thank you? I mean, thank you for actually contributing to it. But, that's the thing about these cons that really, really gets me, and it's the sense of community, and it's the amazing people that you meet there, and it's, we just spent 57 minutes trying to describe what BronyCon is like, but I could never, ever spend enough time to tell you how much it means to me and how amazing it was to be there in person, to meet all the amazing people. There are 1,000 stories, hundreds of people that we've met that we haven't mentioned and couldn't mention because of time constraints. It's just so many amazing people, and it really, I cannot recommend these conventions enough. Just being around like-minded people that you might not have met in person but know online, or just random people that you might meet in the hallway. Everybody was so amazing. This fandom is just, it really just warms my heart because everything that happens in it is just so amazing. And people mention the awkward moments all the time, and people make fun of that. And yeah, there's some awkward moments, but you know what? Like, I would much rather have awkward moments than mean moments, and there's so much less than you ever think that there is, because it's so outweighed by all of the humbleness and all of the just amazing attitudes that everyone has. I would recommend, if you haven't gone already, go to one of these conventions, meet up with some friends, and just have like one of the best weekends of your life, because it is just indescribable, the kind of stuff that goes on at these cons, and just go and do it, man, because I can't recommend it enough. Yeah. So, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I think we're going to try and go to BronyCon again next year. We're going to try and get all 4 of us there. So if you can go to a convention and you want to meet up with us, we're going to try and do that. And we might even try and get a panel for next year. So that would be awesome. And I know there's, like what Rainbow Plasma was saying and what Burner was saying, is there's so many awesome people that we kind of met up with. And we can't like go through all of them because there's just so many awesome experiences and amazing people that we met. But it's like all of those people kind of hold a special place in our hearts, because it was just, everyone was so nice, everyone was so kind and open and like appreciative of the con and friends and art there and stuff like that. So it was amazing.
Yeah.
It sounds stupid, and people will think that it's stupid when you try to describe to them what goes on at BronyCon, the people who are going there. But let me tell you, it is far from it. It is the complete opposite from it. It is an amazing experience, and if you are fortunate enough to be able to go out to one of these things, I highly, highly recommend it. That being said, we are running up on time, so we do have to wrap up. Thank you guys for sticking around and listening to this podcast. I know that sometimes it's a bit of a stretch because these are things that are happening to us, but we try to talk about artists as much as possible. Hopefully, you guys have learned a couple new artists today if you've stuck around, and we'll go check them out later. But we will be back next week with our regular show. We haven't come up with a theme because we are exhausted and are still recovering from BronyCon. So we're gonna leave that up to the fates of us next week, right before we record, to figure that one out. Is there any kind of last thoughts that you guys wanna kind of mention before we wrap up? Because we do need to wrap up like now.
The point I made earlier about how we didn't mention that we got to all meet each other again.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, like, it's a good thing to mention, but we I guess we all kind of know that now. But I think a highlight for all of us is getting to meet each other as well.
That's what I had said earlier, not on the show, but again, like what some of the highlights for these conventions recently had been for me, getting to interact with Max and Ted and like going to meet them as well, because like we're all flying across the world to go see each other and spend time with each other, share a room with each other, and do things that friends do, I guess. And sometimes it gets overlooked when ranting about stuff and all these awesome, amazing artists and people we get to meet. But like, I wanted to let Ted and Max know that I still love them, because getting to interact with them was just as special.
We love you too, Burned.
Yeah, I said it.
Love you, Burn.
Yeah, for sure. And I would recommend, if you're going to go out to one of these PonyCons, go out and meet up with some friends, because you guys can have an awesome time like we had. And it was very special getting to see you, Burned, and Mahower, and you too, but you're still here, so I can't miss you until you're gone.
Mahower's my special man.
Fine, I'm leaving.
Yeah. So, yeah. Well, you had one more thing, and we ran out of time?
I just wanted to say sorry that we didn't have an episode for last week, but we were busy at BronyCon. And I guess that Art Saushin interview aired again, so for those of you guys who showed up, I hope you enjoyed it. And I know Burned is going to be trying to get some of the artists that we met at the convention and that we might have done interviews with there on the show in the next coming weeks. So hopefully you guys can take a look at some of those interviews.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, on that note, speaking of which, actually, the very last thing I wanted to bring up was the plugs. And that is, let's start off with the relevant ones here. So if you want to check out our gallery, all of our BronyCon pictures, you can go to cutieartcrusaders.deviantart.com, and that's where you can check out all those pictures in our gallery. You can also head on over to, oh god, my mind is blanked. What was I going to say next?
Tumblr, Twitter, YouTube.
Thank you, Burned. You can head on over to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Cutie Art Crusaders. We're going to be putting up a ton of content from BronyCon, not only those press conferences, which you should watch, but also the interviews of the artists, which you should also watch. And of course, you can always get our episodes there, so feel free to subscribe. We've also got a Twitter and a Tumblr, which Twitter is at Cutie Art Crusade, Tumblr, Cutie Art Crusaders, Facebook, Cutie Art Crusaders, and a Gmail if you want to contact us at cutieartcrusaders@gmail.com. But that is everything for this week. I'm going to wrap up because we are over time. So, without further ado, my name is Rainbow Plasma.
My name is Burn01.
And I'm Photoguy317.
And we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for watching.
Bye.
Bye.